In many ways, this most recent full moon in Taurus could be called the signing of the false matrix's death certificates. My name is Solara. I am a seer. I am a code keeper. I am a grid walker. I am a fighter for those who have been wrongfully, spiritually oppressed by the false matrix specifically. And most importantly, I am a new earth being, and I am also the creator of a system that I call Tarotstrology. And this is what we will be using today to dive into the energies of the most recent full moon. So with Tarotstrology, I'm not a formally trained astrologer. I do use the astrology of now to tune into what it is that the planets rather allow for me to channel the planets and the luminaries, as well as the numerology that comes through, as well as the tarot association. So I use Tarotstrology as a codex to break apart the astrology of now. So if you're a stickler for regular astrological speak, I might not be for you. Yes, let's get into it, okay? You are welcome here for as long as you are in alignment with my frequency. And for as long as you are also on the same trajectory of clearing out those false matrix contracts that were designed to not only harvest you, but harvest the earth herself and the Divine Mother. And this is what this most recent full moon has been about. It's Friday, the 7th of November, as I record this. The full moon occurred 2 days ago on the 5th of November at 1:19 or 13:19 GMT time. So already we have some interesting things showing up in the numbers if we're to go by GMT, which GMT tends to be the number at the prime meridian of the earth, the main vertical longitudinal line that separates the Western hemisphere from the Eastern hemisphere. Okay, so that's the prime meridian. So if we're to go by the time that was expressing through the prime meridian at the time, it was 13:19 or 1:19 p.m. on Wednesday, the 5th of November, when the moon reached her fullness at 13 degrees. So you already see this 13 number, right? The sun was 13 degrees Scorpio. The moon, 13 degrees Taurus, occurred at 13:19. So let's just get into the timing first and foremost, because with 13, we are dealing with death energy. We're dealing with Scorpio energy. The death card is the Scorpio card in the tarot. There are 3 Scorpio cards, but the death card is specifically connected to Scorpio alone. And then we have the Tower, which connects to Scorpio because it is a card of Mars. And then we have the Judgment card, which connects to Scorpio, which is a card of Pluto. And of course, Mars and Pluto are Scorpio's ruling planets. And there's been a lot of Mars energy coming through recently that I've been feeling, moving through the collective. And of course, Mars, it is the divine masculine destroyer energy, and Pluto is the divine feminine destroyer and rebirth also. She destroys to bring back to life or to bring in new life. So Mars and Pluto are the 2 ruling planets of Scorpio. Now back to the numerology of the time, 13:19. So 13 is the death card, right? Scorpio energy. 19 is the sun card in the tarot. So when we are dealing with the death card and the sun card, or here numerologically, 13 and 19, there are a few themes we're dealing with. One, we're dealing with the death of something, and we're dealing with the death of something to bring forth solar alignment. And what is solar alignment? When you get to the number 19 card, it's when you have recovered those aspects and parts of self that have been scattered and have been allowing for you to be harvested through the false matrix. So this is already speaking to us about how there is some kind of death that's occurring from our having to continue living in fragmented states. Of course, it's all down to personal will and choice. But at the end of the day, that is now what is available. Okay. 13 also not for nothing, is a degree of Aries, which shows you that something is in its beginning phase. Aries kicks off the zodiac wheel. It's cardinal fire. 13, when you break it down to 4, speaks of foundations. 4 is when geometrically something becomes steady enough to become something. That's what we have expressed through the number 4 in sacred geometry, but even in how the 4 is expressed through the tarot as the Emperor card, and then the 4 cards in the suits, the 4 of Wands, the 4 of Swords, the 4 of Cups, the 4 of Pentacles. They're all cards that speak of setting a certain foundation at different levels, the foundational energies that are necessary to move to the next step. Okay, so we have that coming through. And we also have, because 19 breaks down to 10, that is the simultaneous ending and beginning. This is where energies cross and beginnings come while endings phase out. So we're being shown here through just the numerology. We haven't even gotten into the chart yet with the 4 and the 10. That there is something being established. And you might have felt this. I was talking to a good friend about this earlier on today. You might have felt this, this energy that's been circulating over the past couple of days, especially, where one minute you're feeling great and then the next minute you're not. One minute you're feeling certain, the next minute you're not. And yes, of course, this is ascension, but it's been heightened recently. And why is that? Well, that's because literally the very thing that held the false matrix together, it no longer is in existence. And yet what is coming together to hold and to take forth the true contracts of the earth, it's only coming together simultaneously. That's the perfect example of the 10. So sometimes you're really tuning into, this is really worlds colliding right now. This is what we're feeling very viscerally, because as the false matrix dies, the divine mother rises. So it's happening all together at the same time. It's happening in the collective energy, but more importantly, it's happening in you. Okay, so there's a lot of themes around not only like your own matrilineage and the maternal energies that have shaped you on a family and a biological level, but very specifically the maternal wounding that the false matrix incepted and made your narrative so that you would live apart from yourself. You would live as an orphan in this realm. Okay, you'd live as an orphan, and she was like a wicked stepmother. All the fairy tales are just telling us the truth. They're telling it to us in allegory. Okay, so there's been a big death that's had to occur within self over the past couple of days. You might have felt it very viscerally, because as I described it in the collective, in the post that I put up yesterday on the community board, literally the seed energy of the false matrix has been dying, and it's been dying in us too. So if you've been called into a lot of shadow work over the past few days, or as the sun, technically entered into Scorpio, astrologically speaking, astronomically, it just entered into Libra. Right? But astrologically, if you're going by Western astrology, the sun entered Scorpio about 2 weeks ago now, I think. So we're like halfway through Scorpio season, and the energy of shadow work has been picking up. Now, before I go any further, I want to speak to any arguments that come up in people about astrology. Yes, astronomically speaking, the sun is in Libra right now. Astrologically speaking, the sun is in Scorpio. Now, what do we make of that? How do we read the energies? This is my take on it. So, you can have your own point of view. This is how I view it, and why I continue until I'm being shown to shift. I continue to read it this way, because energy is not just about what is literally happening. Energy is also about where the mental and emotional energy of the collective is being directed, which means that there's a lot to be said about what is happening through the current and the flow of energy right now, because for all intensive purposes, the collective is still very tuned into the Western astrological picture. Now, in my opinion, what I've been shown is as we come more on board with the new earth, we will be shifting direction and settling more into what is true in the sky. But for now, as the false matrix dies, and we're looking at the Western astrological chart, there's a lot to be said because a lot of us are going through that deep death and purging. And very interestingly enough, and this is why I do tarotstrology and not astrology, even with all of, I use the astrology as a map, but even if I were to look at it another way, I'd pick up on the same themes and stories because of the way I look at it. It's not just the astrology, it's the numbers, it's the tarot, it's the channeling. Okay, so I just want to be clear about where I stand on that, because sometimes I get like people arguing in the comments. I'm not really here to argue with people. If you don't agree, you don't have to. You can tune into somebody else who is on the same wavelength as you for where you are on your journey and your path. Okay, so let's get into the numbers of what is going on, or what was going on through the full moon in Taurus. We're coming up to the new moon in Scorpio in 2 weeks, but right now, full moon in Taurus. So the sun and the moon were both at 13 degrees, the sun in Scorpio, the moon in Taurus. Okay, so we have that 13, 13 again. Now, 13 is an interesting number because not only does it speak to the death card in the tarot that connects us to Scorpio. 13 is also a number of womb mystery, a number of creational mystery, a number of divine feminine mastery. It is the code of the Divine Mother, which is in many ways why in the false matrix they wanted us in fear of this number, right? There's a lot of stigma and a lot of myth around the number 13 being unlucky, and understand and overstand that they needed to do that in order to create this division in you, in your own psyche and energy, and this war with this number that actually is the code of existence. And what do I mean when I say it's the code of existence? Because, well, it's a code of existence on Earth. It's a code of existence in terms of how things actually become material in many ways. So if you look at this from a geometric standpoint, 13, at the point when a shape reaches 13 sides, it oftentimes is when a circle that is flat becomes a sphere or a globe. In other words, it's that threshold that crosses from the 2D into the 3D. When something that was flat becomes something that has an extra dimension. And as it's expressed here for us, that is what we call the material realm, right? So there's a very real reason why they demonized the number 13 and deified the number 12. Because in the false matrix, everything was about putting you through death cycles, constant death and rebirth cycles that kept you in trauma loops. So you would never break out of a cycle and graduate and evolve and ascend. You would constantly be running around yourself in the same cycle or being pulled into even lower cycles, because that actually promotes death, wrongful death. It even promotes the death by disease. Okay, so the whole point of deifying the number 12 was it was in and of itself a ritual to get you to kind of co-sign on how they wanted you locked in certain cycles that kept you from tuning into your creatrix codes, and that kept you, and that also kept the Divine Mother and her principles bound. Okay, so 13 is one of the main Divine Mother numbers also. And that's because also when you think about how Earth is supposed to be versus how it is, Earth was supposed to be a place where we came to imagine ourselves in material form, where we came to learn how to utilize our multidimensional, infinite abilities in a body. It wasn't meant to be a prison planet. It wasn't meant to be somewhere where you would suffer and struggle. The Divine Mother is the one who made provision for you to have everything you needed to thrive without working. And so in binding her, and in getting you to also, in many ways, disengage from her truth, including turning you against the number 13. What that did was it took you away from the true knowledge of self that let you know that what you were living in was a facade, was a simulation that was built and based off of harvesting her and harvesting you. Okay, so this, when I say to you that through this full moon in Taurus, these are the death certificates of the false matrix being signed off on. This is literally what is occurring for many of us as we do the shadow work, because so much of how we've come to view ourselves and the world and how we're supposed to function in the world when it comes to our own sense of true power, how we relate to other people, relational dynamics, the things that we build, the things that we're here to do. We've been living in fictions as far as the truth of what Earth is supposed to be and what it was designed to be. And so this whole ascension process has been kind of like this, almost like this cyclical journey back to, like a spiral journey back to the center of your truth, back to the center of where this all began for all of us, you know, because we have the collective story of how far we've fallen away from the truth as a group. But then we also have the personal accountability for the ways we've allowed ourselves to do that, because we've bought narratives and we've lived out narratives, and we've lived from a place of woundedness instead of enlightened sovereignty. And so these deeply buried truths, these seeds of our own dissension, these seeds of our own corruption, these seeds of our own, woundedness, what created the deepest wound in us that we kept on perpetuating a lot of the time unconsciously. These are the things that have been being brought to the fore for many beings, especially those of you who are here to be what we call the way showers on the earth, meaning that you're here to activate your new earth blueprint, your true source encoded energy signature and blueprint. You're here to activate that on the planet so that the planet becomes activated in and of herself in order to help other beings to rise also. Those of you who hold those what we call those way shower codes, it's been hitting you the hardest. And it's been hitting you the hardest because for the false matrix to die, she has to first die in us. She has to die in us because she was born through us. Unconsciously, unwillingly a lot of the times, but it doesn't matter. If she is going to die, energetically speaking, in order to materialize new earth timelines that are rooted in the provision that the Divine Mother has for us and that flows through us and to us naturally and divinely, if those gates are to be opened, then we must first shut down the gates and the contracts where we have aligned ourselves with the false mother, the false matrix in any way, and where we have allowed that to take us off course. And it has been, I'm sure many of you can attest, it has been an intricate picking apart of showing us exactly the seeds and the seed point, so that we could be honest enough with ourselves to completely eradicate those energies, completely expose them, so that we are now fertile and open to all the beauty that the Divine Mother wishes to bring to us and to birth through us. Now, the thing about trauma, and they knew this in the false matrix, the thing about trauma is it causes your energy body to constrict. It causes you to be afraid. It causes you not to be in a position to receive, and it causes you in that place where your energy field is kind of broken down and you've turned into yourself. It causes you also to make decisions from woundedness to try to armor and protect yourself. And many of us have been working through this, through this time of ascension. But the thing is that as enlightened as you may be, if we're still walking around with that armor, we might know the truth, but we have not become the fallow, fertile ground for the seed to be planted, for us to materialize and bring forth that truth in the timeline. So what has been occurring and what this full moon is really kind of magnifying in us is our ability to become the fertile soil that is needed to bring forth the true new earth timelines and templates that put the Divine Mother back on her throne, and therefore allows for us to be properly cared for, properly provided, to begin to eradicate those timelines of suffering and the belief systems that have been cultivated in the false matrix that made us believe that we are not worthy or we are not allowed to have things if we're not struggling, if we're not suffering, if we're not working, if we're not grinding. Everything has to be earned. That was bullshit. That was bullshit. And it's been a very difficult thing to let go of. You know, very difficult thing for all of us to let go and to see again the intricacies and the nuances in how this plays out. Because at the end of the day, if we are to receive the fullness of our provision here on earth, we have to let go of all of those mindsets that have had us tied into believing that we have to earn our place. You know, if you are, if you're a mother, or all of us have a mother, like if you had a healthy relationship with your mother, or you have a healthy relationship with your children, you don't make your children feel as if they have to earn your love, right? Or your mother shouldn't have made you feel like you had to earn her love or a place in her heart, and motherhood in the false matrix was fucked with royally in order to create a lot of distortion, where we would also be psychologically primed to believe that we need to earn something. But you don't need to earn anything with the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother gives to you freely because it's her pleasure to see you thrive. When you thrive, when you live in joy, when you live in peace, when you live in abundance, and you live in overflow, that's not just for you. That lights up the very grids of the earth that allow for all things to be in harmony here. So it is her pleasure and her will for you to live in joy, in peace, in stability, in your purpose, the things that bring you more of those things. But if we are still fighting against those stories where we believe we're not worthy, or we have to fight, or we've done something so wrong that we can't come back into alignment with our truth, then we're not there yet. And this is what the shadow work is about. Because for those of you who've been rolling with me for a while, I love Scorpio season. I love Scorpio season. I've got quite a bit of Scorpio, like very strong Scorpio placements myself. I love Scorpio season. I'll tell you why I love Scorpio season, because I joke with my Scorpionic friends. I was like, out of all of the signs of the zodiac, you bitches have to have like 3 emblems. Nobody else has 3. Maybe some have 2, but nobody has 3. You've got the scorpion, you've got the eagle, and you've got the phoenix, right? And then even in the tarot, you've got the tower, you've got the death, and you've got judgment. 3 cards. Now, why is that? Because Scorpio is a sign of the zodiac that causes you to pick yourself apart, to rise into the higher contract. And not only does Scorpio ask you and assist you in seeing the deepest depths of your own shadow and those places that you refuse to visit because of shame, Scorpio also challenges you to see the highest aspects of your power that you're also afraid to touch because of shame. You know what that means? Scorpio is a sign of the zodiac that shows you where you are God and where you are the devil. It shows you both sides of who you are, as a multidimensional being. Because if you're a multidimensional infinite being, you are all things. And you cannot flow in your infinite truth if you can't accept that. And that's what the false matrix knew. This is why the false matrix wanted to shame you about your shadow and then make you feel like you're less than, so you don't rise into your power. And Scorpio says, babe, let me take you by the hand and show you the underworld, but let me also show you heaven. And then you're going to come together within yourself and alchemize the two and rise up in the truth of who you are and your glory through your Phoenix codes. And then in Sagittarius season, you start to walk the fuck out of this new codex that Scorpio has opened you up to. So it's not a sign to be messed with. And it's a season where only those who are really wanting to see the truth of who they are, to rise into their true divinity and power, not the mask, not the facade, not the love and light, false spirituality, personas, mask, and bullshit. No, this is the deep alchemy that allows for you to rise into your rightful place, to reclaim your cosmic, divine, source encoded, source encrypted codex, so you can begin to walk that shit on earth as it's already written in the heavens. So Scorpio is not a sign, to be messed with. And because of where we are in ascension right now, and like I said, this is a fucking signing of the false matrix, a false mother's death certificate. Scorpio didn't come to play this year. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So for those of you who might have found yourself like in the fetal position, literally or internally, in these past 2 weeks, know that you're not alone in that, because we have been being stripped of everything that doesn't align with our true divine codex that connects us to the Divine Mother. And why is that? Okay. Why is that? Because when you're dealing with Scorpio and you're dealing with Taurus energy, you are dealing with value, and you are dealing with the foundation of all value systems, including the foundation of the financial systems that we have pledged our allegiance to in the false matrix that were designed to keep us out of our true value. And now we're dealing with all of our stories of devaluing self in every facet, because it's time to build a whole new value system based upon your divinity and your truth. And the fact of the matter is that you weren't supposed to be participating in life the way you've been participating in it. And the Divine Mother is like knocking on the doors of our hearts loudly right now. Like, it's time to reclaim your throne. It's time for you to get back the ability to sit in the position of knowing who you are, and that you're taken care of just because of who you are, not because you earned it or because of rank or any of this other the hierarchical stuff in the false matrix that was designed for your denigration. There's hierarchy in all structure. But in the false matrix, that hierarchy was designed to devalue you and to have others build false value through the continual devaluation of you. I hope that makes sense. So let's get into this a little bit more, because, I get passionate about this stuff. So the sun in Scorpio at 13 degrees, and then also it was happening at 13 degrees and 22 minutes. That's 4-4 energy, guys. 4-4, moon at 13 degrees, 22 minutes, 4-4. That again is the call of the Divine Mother, 4-4. That connects us to the grid system of the earth, the dragon energy. This is Mother of Dragons energy, right? So we're feeling that very strongly. 22, not for nothing, it's happening at the 22nd minute. 22 is a degree of Capricorn that speaks of the materialization, mater, the materialization, the birthing, the bringing into the material of timelines. Okay, so we have this already here in the numbers. It's speaking about how there is a death, a deep death, but there's also a materialization and a birthing that's happening simultaneously. And a lot of this that you're going through, it's going to become so much clearer through Sagittarius season and Capricorn season, what it is you've been shedding and why. Okay, so The sun in Scorpio at 13 degrees. Let's break this down in terms of tarot astrology. The sun is the sun card. Scorpio, you have again the death card, the tower, and the judgment. Okay? Because Scorpio season is when we bring judgment upon ourselves. Okay? And the reason we must bring judgment upon ourselves is so that we break out of the false contracts. Because Scorpio season is also the height of when the false matrix's energy harvesting calendar was active. It's in complete dissolution right now, but when it was active, Scorpio season was a high point in their spiritual black and gray markets. So if you are not honest with yourself, if you are not bringing judgment to yourself and all the ways you align away from your truth and with the false matrix, and you are unconsciously opting into their market cycles. And this is why Scorpio is so vehemently like wanting you to do the work of seeing the fullness of who you are and how you contribute to what you create, so that you don't get dragged back into their marketplace where you get recycled again and have to go through those loops and those cycles of suffering for the purpose of being harvested. This is why Scorpio is such a stickler with us. Okay, so with the sun in Scorpio, there's a lot of highlighting. There was a lot, and there is a lot of highlighting of what needs to die. What needs to die in us, what needs to die in terms of what we've been allowing to feed the things that need to die in us. What needs to die so that we can begin to bring forth timelines and experiences that are rooted in our true value and in the provision of the Divine Mother. This energy is being highlighted. Now, 13 is, again, it's a degree of Aries that connects us to the number 13 card in the tarot, which again is Scorpio. It's death. It's a death card. So we've got a lot of Scorpio energy, not only coming through the sign, but coming through the degree of expression here, 13, right? So degree of Aries, this also means war. This is what I was saying. There's a very strong Mars component that's been coming through the energy recently. And yes, we know that Scorpio is co-ruled by the planet Mars, but Mars has been very, in my opinion, very, very talkative in this window. And we'll get into it because through this full moon, Mars was actually stationed at 0 degrees Sagittarius, which means it was at a Sagittarian portal. So Mars has been stretching us through this to like put to death aggressively. Mars is aggressive. Pluto is more like, sweeps things away layer by layer. Mars just comes to destroy. So that Mars aspect has been really like wanting us to destroy that which would not allow for us to walk into this portal of our own expansion. Because Sagittarius is the sign of the zodiac where we begin to walk out our power on earth. It is the sign of the zodiac that when you break down every letter into gematria, it breaks down to 144. The frequency, the 144 frequency, it lives within the codex of Sagittarius, what the Sagittarian medicine is here to do for us all, what Sagittarius season in the zodiac wheel and on the zodiac calendar, what it opens up in terms of the gates for us all. Okay, so the moon in Taurus at 13 degrees. Oh, my bad. So in terms of the minor arcana energy, 13 degrees of Scorpio is the 6 of Cups. The 6 of Cups. Now, the 6 of Cups is an interesting card, right? Because, generically, when we look at tarot, a lot of the time we think of it in terms of like relationships. We think of it as, inner child, those relationships that kind of are like soulmate, past life connections, and all of that. For me, the 6 of Cups is about how we contract ourselves to things that feel like home, right? So understand and overstand that sometimes just because something feels like home doesn't make it home. Because if you had a scenario where your home was being run, we're going to look at the mother energy specifically because we're dealing with womb energy and we're dealing with the false matrix and that false mother template that was designed to cause our destruction and dysfunction as a people. If you're looking at the idea of home, and at the helm of the home is a mother that's living in distortion, then what you start to think of as being home is actually dysfunction. And the more that you allow for yourself to be programmed to believe that's your home base, the farther away you get away from yourself, and the more you are welcoming in cycles and relationships that feel like home, but they're highly dysfunctional and discordant for who you are on a soul level. So the Six of Cups, it deals with all of those themes. It deals with, first and foremost, locating home within self, having that foundation, and from that foundation, building, finding home in others and in situations, scenarios, locations. It has to come from that place of divine alignment, of feeling at home with self. And the only way most of us can come back, I apologize, the only way most of us can come back into alignment with feeling like home in self is through remothering ourselves, is through the coming back to the Divine Mother, right? So the way that you begin to cultivate a home base in terms of feeling stable in yourself, choosing people that magnify that, choosing environments and situations that magnify that, is by coming back to the true codex that the Divine Mother gave to you, that your own biological mother was supposed to impart to you, but mothers can only give to you what they have themselves. So this is about coming back into our true, like, homing frequency, you could almost say. And thank you to that person. I know it just beeped. For me, that means somebody just purchased a decree or made a donation. So thank you. Thank you. So coming back to home, coming back into that homing function. And what I mean when I say homing function, I'm talking about that place that you've been pulled so far away from through the false mother, and the Divine Mother is pulling you back into that true homing station that connects to her. Yes? Okay. The Moon in Taurus. So that's the Moon card. Taurus is the Hierophant. So we're dealing with systems, and we're dealing with divine wisdom and knowledge. And we're also dealing with our own stories of self-value and how we are able to express that in who we are. Taurus connects us to the throat also, which is all about your self-expression. It's also about your access to the 5D. Your access to being, the 5D is where you become a creator again of your timelines, right? The 3D, a lot of the time when we get stuck there, it's because we are being used to create and materialize. We're not in our creator role. The 3D and the 4D, that's also where manifestation occurs, which is not the same. I've said it for years now. It's not, manifestation and creation are not the same. We won't get into that debate right now, but they're not the same. And that's not me saying that one is, well, I'm not saying manifestation is bad. I am saying that it has a function that's been overused for the purpose of siphoning. It's been taken out of balance, as all things were in the false matrix. So we've got the Hierophant, 13 again, that degree of Aries astrologically that connects us to the Scorpio card in the tarot. That is the Death card. And then the 13 degree mark in terms of the minor arcana card of Taurus is the Six of Pentacles. So we got Six of Cups and Six of Pentacles. What is the Six of Pentacles card? Six of Pentacles is the minor arcana card of justice. So it speaks about, and justice is about the reenactment of harmony. Okay, it's about the reenactment of bringing things back into harmony on every level. So everyone's harmonious sequences is going to look different in terms of who you are, your own experiences, what you're here to do, etc. My harmony is not your harmony. This is why we must know self, and we're not here to tell other people how to be who they are, like they did in the false matrix. They did that on purpose to take you out of harmony with yourself. Nobody can tell you how to be you. Only you know, you and source. Other beings can help to direct you back to you, but nobody at the end of the day can tell you how to be you. Okay? And whenever you take in information from another external source trying to control your narrative or your story, or to tell you how it is you're supposed to be, and it doesn't connect with the truth of your soul, then you are moving away from yourself. And you are opening, every time you move away from yourself and source, you're opening yourself up to be harvested or to be plugged into. And this is why in the false matrix, they wanted us in argument with self and with one another. They wanted us following codes that weren't for us, because that's how we get harvested, right? So the Six of Pentacles is about how bringing things back into proper alignment, but it's very specific. It has to do with also the materialization of those things, like how these things are playing out in real time. It's not just like the balancing in your thoughts or in your feelings, you know, in the mental and the emotional planes, or in the etheric and spiritual planes. No, it's about concretely in the physical, how you're bringing justice to yourself in accordance with your own true value and knowledge of who you are divinely. In other words, are you still following templates that have to do with narratives or plans that you've been told to live by? Or are you every single day plugging deeper into your own rhythm? This is what Virgo teaches us, right? Your own natural rhythm, what it is you need to feel more rooted in self. Because that's where your value begins. The more you're able to serve self and what your self needs, the more your true value system can rise, and the more you can begin to give of that value to other people from a place of sovereignty and not transaction. So everything about Taurus and Scorpio is about value. How we find value in self, how we cultivate it, how we look after that value. Because in order to build a proper value system that's not rooted in harvesting, codependency, disharmony, discord, all of that other stuff, in order to build a true value system that's rooted on, source encoded and encrypted truth and exchanges, then we have to first enact that in and for self. So, this moon is really pulling us into dealing with the things we need to see, where we're still, pledging our allegiance outside of ourselves in order to feel valuable, when really the value must be first found in self. The seed of value must be first implanted in self. And then naturally it brings you the harvest back that helps you to grow that value in justice, in truth. So there's a lot of reckoning with self, with those things that need to die, that contribute to our own devaluation, right? In all ways. Mercury is in Sagittarius, or was in Sagittarius. Well, it's still in Sagittarius, but it was at 5 degrees. Okay, so 5 degrees is a degree of Leo, astrologically speaking. So we've got a little bit of golden age codes that are coming through this Mercury energy also. So 5 is also connected to Taurus, right, in the tarot. That's the Hierophant. So we're talking about the Golden Age codes returning to the planet very specifically for the rooting of the systems and the institutions now that are coming into alignment with the Golden Age. The reason why so much is coming into destruction and dysfunction on governmental levels globally is because of this energy. And it's only growing. It's only growing. So Mercury is the magician. The card of Sagittarius is the Temperance card. 5 degrees is the 8 of Wands. This is very quick moving energy. Don't be surprised if things start to move very rapidly for you in terms of like moving forward, breaking out of boxes and boundaries and things that have had you unable to freely flow and move. Sagittarius is all about the liberation of your ability to be yourself, to move, right? So don't be surprised if through this full moon, it's the instigating point of something opening for you on a personal level, but also collectively, okay? And this is also for those of you who are looking for ways forward. This full moon is speaking to you more of what that means. And this would be for the reason that many of us have an idea of what it is we think we want. This moon is going to show us how to get to that place. It might not be that you go directly there, and that's the truth. There's also transitional refuge spots that we go into internally, physically, depending on your situation, locationally, temporarily. But this full moon is going to give you more of an enlightenment and an idea of how to move forward, even if the way you're to move forward isn't in exact alignment with what it is you think you want right now. And it's not that you can't have it. It's that if you want to get there, it's better to move in this direction than to stay stuck waiting, if that makes sense. Okay, so Mercury is the magician. Temperance, 5 degrees is the 8 of Wands. I also already spoke about all of that, like the Leo energy and the Hierophant. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming forth also within the systems that is going to allow for more flexibility for many of you. And I'm not saying that this is happening instantly. I'm saying that this is the energy that is coming forth very specifically in the mental body, in the mental planes. And before something comes into the material from the mental, it goes through the emotional body and the emotional planes. In other words, you have to sign off on it in your body, in your truth. You have to recognize it and not rebuke it, not push it out, which is what a lot of us have been doing. We want something in our minds, but emotionally, because we're still so tangled up in the trauma, we push it away. That's what I was talking about with that armor in the beginning that has to go for us to become fertile ground. This full moon is really challenging us in those places where we need to let things go in order to open up to the new, in order to move into what it is we want, to move into the new. And we have to be more open-minded, open-hearted in terms of moving forward, but then very definitive in what needs to go for us to do that too. Venus in Libra. So Venus now, as I record, I think she's at the 0 degree of Scorpio, or maybe she's at 1 degree of Scorpio right now, but she's in Scorpio as of now. But on Tuesday, when the moon was full, she was at that 28 degree of Libra. Okay, and Venus loves being in Libra, right? Because she rules over Libra and over Taurus. So we have a lot of Venusian energy that's been moving through this window also, because again, the full moon in Taurus. And then also Venus in Libra, it always, like when a planet is in its own sign, it always kind of seems to be magnified in that energy. So what does Venus come here to help us do? Venus helps us to give birth materially, to bring forth things onto the earth materially. Okay, and she also helps us. She connects us to our creativity. So this is why Venus is very much a planet that's connected to the arts, because the arts is but one way we use our creative and our creator energy to bring things forth. I know in the false matrix, they made it seem as if our creativity, art, and all of that stuff was just for pleasure and just for us to enjoy on the weekends or once a month or 2 times a year. But actually, as a creator being, your creatrix codes, they live within your creational field. And your creativity is an extension of your source code. So your ability to paint, your ability to dance, your ability to write, your ability to speak, to sing, to do all of those things that we connect with creativity, those are actually how you birth new worlds, new timelines, new realities. That's why they didn't want you knowing that. That's why they made it seem like it was recreational. And that's why those areas as professions were so heavily gatekept. Right? Not everyone gets to be an actor or an actress or a singer or a dancer or a sports person, because sports is also a physical expression of your creative codes. Not everyone gets to do that, because that's where God power exists. And they wanted to control that, which is why those people who were in the spotlight that we were taught to to idolize. That's why they were so heavily contracted in their expression through sports, through music, through entertainment. So Venus is recoding the grids in some way, because that 28-degree mark, we're going to see it come up again in the new moon in Scorpio. The new moon in Libra just occurred at the 28-degree mark. The next, I think, 6 new moons, including the last new moon in Libra, so all the way up until the new moon in Aries, they're all occurring at 28 degrees. I spoke about that, I think, in the last video. And 28 degrees is a degree of Cancer, which connects us with the recoding of the grids of the earth. Very strong dragon energy also, right? So Venus is speaking about the harmony and the beauty of our creative energy, creational flow, divine feminine wisdom expressed, being re-anchored into the grids also. So if you have been feeling more connected to your creative abilities, embrace it, because this is exactly what needs to happen right now. And the more you embrace it, the more that part of your codes begin to return and flourish, and you also begin to get back the coding that other beings have been siphoning from you and harvesting from you, and trading on their black markets. It comes back to you as you use what is yours and you take it back for yourself and you use it. It grows and more comes, right? So this is partly that Venus energy that was expressing itself. So Venus is the Empress. Libra is justice and the Empress because of the Venusian connection. 28 degrees of Libra is the motherfucking 4 of Swords. So the 4 of Swords is telling you, we had the Sun in Libra at 28 degrees, and now we got the Venus in Libra at 28 degrees for this full moon. I'm sorry, the Sun and the Moon in Libra at 28 degrees for the new moon in Libra. And now for the full moon in Taurus, we've got Venus expressing at 28 degrees, therefore materializing some of what was coming through the new moon in Libra and these new earth contracts that are rooted. What the baseline now is love for self, love for who you are as a creator being, true love for beings who you're in frequential alignment with. We can love everyone, but there are beings who we are supposed to be in frequential alignment with, where that love is actualized, materialized. And this is what Venus is helping us to come back into alignment with. This is what the new moon in Libra began to kick off also. So Venus is here, like, we're materializing that shit now. Are you ready to walk in it? Are you ready to own it? Are you ready to live it? Are you ready to embody it? Okay, this is getting long, but we'll go into Mars. Mars in Sagittarius at 0 degrees. So that's a fucking portal. When you're dealing with 0 degree energy, in my opinion, you're dealing with portal energy. You're dealing with the infinite possibility, something that opens up the infinite possibility of that energy. It's a literal portal into the energy and the sign and the medicine and the dimension and the place, depending on how you're moving. So Mars in Sagittarius is kicking open a door to liberation. But the liberation, again, it's an internal thing. Before you get liberated externally, you must liberate yourself internally. You must find the door that's hidden beneath all the things you were told you're not. For better or for worse, right, Scorpio? For better or for worse. You better find those things that you have deep shame about in your shadow, and you got to find those things that you have shame about because you don't believe you could be that great. It's all there. And behind all of that stuff and the acceptance of that lies the door into your freedom. Because Sagittarius is all about you rising into your ability to walk on the earth in your God code. 144 energy, right? So Mars is the Tower. Sagittarius, again, is the Temperance. When you're dealing with the 0 degrees, you're always dealing with Ace energy. So this is the Ace of Wands, but you're also dealing with the 8 of Wands. So this is also about the breaking out of certain generational curse fields. Now, it's not even just a personal thing, although you will feel it personally. What I've been feeling and even talking about with, a lot of my healer friends and what I've been seeing in this energy, this isn't just this is like the clearance of the actual fields that created the generational curse structures. And if you know anything about energy, then maybe you know that the generational curse structures of the false matrix came through mothers, because it's the female energy they targeted in order to replicate. Feminine energy replicates, creates, duplicates, grows. Masculine energy takes that out into the world, but it's the feminine energy that sources it and replicates it, etc. So in the false matrix, they purposely were in the business of destroying mothers and their relationship with their children, destroying women and their relationship with themselves. It was all about creating that discord internally so that the cycles would continue silently, because then we were also not allowed to express. There was a very powerful gag order over mothers in the false matrix, meaning that motherhood was deified. And then the realities of motherhood, the struggles that women faced because we weren't properly resourced on purpose. And it doesn't matter if you were married and you lived in a, socioeconomically in a nice place. A lot of the time, the very structure of relationships between husbands and wives were designed so that mothers weren't properly resourced, even within the context of those relationships. And then on the whole other side, you have a lot of like single motherhood occurring, which in some instances is better shit. But the whole point was to create scenarios where women were not resourced in motherhood. They weren't resourced. I'm not only talking financially, I'm especially talking spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And then they were silenced. You're not supposed to talk about the struggles of motherhood. You're not supposed to talk about the darker things that come up in you, because you've been forced to be a container for these generational cycles that women keep holding on to and not being able to talk about. And then you're responsible for holding and then activate when you become a mother, but nobody can talk about that, right? Which is in and of itself a whole other level of trauma. And they knew that in the false matrix, because even scientifically and biologically speaking, their own books tell you that you can carry up to 3 generations of trauma matrilineally. And that's their books. To me, it goes way beyond 3. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that your great-grandmother's traumatic experiences live in your body, can be expressed through you genetically, can be passed on to your children, can be experienced through you as if it's your own and you don't even know, right? And then no tools. You can't heal if you can't talk, you can't express, and you can't have tools that help you. So the false matrix's ultimate design was to silently and covertly traumatize mothers so they would do that to their children to varying degrees, to perpetuate the distortions. And so all of these generational curses that so many of us have been waking up to and seeing in ourselves, in our family lines, they were implanted fields that have only grown in strength with every choice and decision to nurture the field. And this Mars in Sagittarius at 0 degrees is very much speaking about the actual destruction of those fields. Because remember, the false matrix, her death certificates are being signed. So the fields that she delivered, the fields that she used us to grow and to keep alive, they're collapsing too. So these family fields that were designed through tradition, through repetition, through, family abuse and energy harvesting and all manner of fuck shit, those actual fields are falling into complete desecration. And I, for one, couldn't be happier. Okay. Alrighty. So I think we're going to wrap up here. I will give a shout out to Jupiter in Cancer, still moving through Cancer. Jupiter's expanding the grids to hold all these things again. This is what Jupiter is doing as it moves through Cancer. And it's also actually, it's in retrograde. So we're going over a lot of things again. That's how energy moves. We move forward and expand. We move back and we learn. We move forward again. It's all the process of things becoming established, kind of like, when you're in school and you learn about something and you've got to go back and review it in order for it to actually stick. That's kind of how the planets help us on an energetic level to establish things. Okay, so we have the nodes at the 15-degree mark. So they're halfway through. They're halfway through their journey, guys. So we have the north node at 15 degrees of Pisces and the south node at 15 degrees of Virgo. This is, they were there for the new moon in Libra too. This is to do with material contracts. It's the devil energy. So material contracts, material timelines, how we end those things, how we learn how to sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed for a cycle to end instead of sacrificing self or sacrificing others, but knowing what it is that needs to be let go of. These are all the lessons when we're dealing with the devil energy, or 15 degrees. And 15 degrees is a degree of Gemini. So it's also to do with our thought processes, where we've been MK Ultra'd. Or, where we are renewing our minds to come into alignment with the truth of who we are, so the true contracts can come back online. And so also, what was I going to say? I lost it now. The true contracts. Oh, and we can also begin to open our hearts again to what is possible. So that's what I have for you with this full moon in Taurus reading. I hope that this was helpful and insightful. If you'd like to book with me for a personal tarot astrology reading, you can do so by emailing me, solarahspeaks@proton.me. I still have some slots for my tarot astrology wealth codes activation readings. No longer any slots with personal decrees. Those have already been sold out. But if you just want a reading and an activation for your wealth codes, then you can still book with me through my Ko-Fi. I'll put the information for that below. I do have new decrees. I have a spiritual divorce decree that I just released a few days ago, and that's all about clearing out the imprints and the coding and the programming that has come through being in karmic relationships or relationships that have turned karmic. Taking back what it is that's yours, giving back to them what it is that is theirs. All of these situations were for our own ascension and our learning, but there are certain aspects of it. We want to hold on to the wisdom and the love, but we don't want to hold on to the things that caused us to defer from self. So that's what the spiritual divorce decree is about. I have another decree coming out very soon. I've been writing quite a few decrees. I haven't released a lot of them, but I've been writing quite a few of them because I work through these things also on a personal level, and then create for the collective, you know, the decrees I put out for you guys too. So I will be probably releasing the other decree once I dive into that topic on Solara Speaks, because it's an abstract one. It's an abstract topic, and if you guys roll with me over there, you'll know I tend to go into those things quite a bit. So yes, if you would like to book a soul recovery session with me for 60 or 90 minutes, you can do that directly through my Ko-Fi. I do have a new offering, I almost forgot. I have a new offering where, for those of you who are returning clients who just want to have a chat and to catch up for 30 minutes instead of booking a whole 60 or 90-minute session, I do have a 30-minute tea time with Solara slot. I had a client recommend that to me, so I thank you so much for that recommendation. I had already been kind of thinking about how to do it, and she came to me and made this suggestion. So I've put it together now, and you can book that through my Ko-Fi also. It is for returning clients, but if you have like maybe a question, you know, and you're not a returning client, that will take like 30 minutes to get through, I'm open to that also. It's just not going to be something where we can dive very deep, okay? What else? If you would like to donate to the channel, you can also do so through my Ko-Fi and my PayPal. I will put that in the description box below. I appreciate all the ways that you donate, that you purchase my decrees and my my services. It is what allows for me to continue to do this work, where I show up here and to do the work, a lot of the work I do behind the scenes, you know, and you're also supporting me and my liberation journey, because as many of you know, I am 3 weeks out of my situation for the first time ever in this lifetime, and possibly since, you know, the previous golden age, that I've been free of these energies. So anyway, I'm sending you guys so much love. Happy, well, belated full moon, and I will see you for the new moon in Scorpio. Be well.